The same family that threw us into poverty came crawling back, desperate to explain, to justify, to beg. But how do you forgive people who watched you starve while they dined on your father's legacy? How do you welcome home those who locked the door behind you? This is not just a story of betrayal, it's about promises and the girl who kept them. Stay with me until the end. What would you have done in my place? Leave your thoughts below, and if this story moves you, like, share, and subscribe. It means more than you know. I was folding laundry when the knock came. Aloud. About the house. And the boys. The boys, my 2 younger brothers, were still asleep upstairs. We had buried our father a week ago. My stepmother just 3 days after that. Grief hadn't even settled yet, and here they were, uninvited. This is our home, I said quietly. Dad left it to us. Did he? Marcia's voice was sweet and sharp at once. Because we've gone through every drawer in his office, and funny, there's no will. I froze. Dad had a will, he told me so. I saw him meeting with the lawyer. You went through Dad's office? I asked. We had to, Roy said. You're still 2 months shy of 18, Riley. No job. No income. And now you think you can raise 2 boys on your own? I'm their sister. You're just a kid playing house. I didn't answer. Not then. I just walked past them into the living room, standing in front of the family portrait still hanging on the wall. My fingers brushed the glass. I knew exactly what Dad would have said. I could almost hear his voice. Protect your brothers. No matter what. Uncle Roy stepped inside, uninvited. We've spoken with a lawyer. As the legal guardian. Take care of the boys. Like they were strays. Not blood. Not heart. Not family. I clenched my jaw. They're not going anywhere. Marcia tilted her head. I stood there staring at the door long after it shut, the echo of their boots on the porch planks fading like a threat. Upstairs, I heard footsteps. Owen and Levi waking up. I wiped my eyes. Straightened my shoulders. Whatever came next, I knew one thing with terrifying clarity. We were alone now, and I would not let them fall. The night before we had to leave, I stared at the empty space where Dad's recliner used to be, still seeing the ghost of his shape leaning back, telling stories after dinner. The echo of his voice haunted the walls. I pressed my hands into my lap to stop them from shaking. Boys, I called softly, and their footsteps padded down the stairs. Levi sat cross-legged beside me. Owen stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, jaw tight like he was trying to keep himself from crying. I cleared my throat.
Come sit. They did.
I need you both to listen carefully, I said. I know this doesn't make sense. I know it feels fast and wrong and unfair. And it is. But I promise you, I won't let us fall apart. Owen's eyes narrowed. Are they really taking the house? I nodded.
Yes.
I wrapped my arm around him. I don't either. But Dad's not here anymore, and the people who should have protected us didn't. That means we protect each other now. Owen's voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. Are we poor now? I hesitated. We don't have much, but we have each other. That's worth more than anything. There was a long pause. Owen sat down beside me, his shoulders slumped. Will we be okay? I looked at him. Really looked. He was only 12, but his eyes were old. Older than they should have been. I reached out and touched his cheek. We will. I don't know how yet, but I swear to you we will. Levi sniffled and wiped his nose on his sleeve. Can we stay together? Even if we don't have a house? I pulled them both in close.
Yes.
As long as I'm breathing, we stay together. That's a promise. Owen leaned his head on my shoulder. Dad would have hated this. I nodded. He would have. But he'd also want us to fight for each other. He'd want us to be brave. Levi was almost asleep in my lap when he whispered, I miss Mom. My chest tightened. I do too. I sat there with him long after they drifted off, the room dimly lit by a single floor lamp. I didn't cry. Not that night.
Not in front of them.
I sat still, memorizing every creak in the floor, every mark on the wall. And I made a promise, not just out loud, but deep in my bones, that no matter where we went, no matter how hard it got, I'd find a way to keep them safe, even if it meant losing everything else. By sunrise, we were gone. No one came to say goodbye.
No neighbors. No cousins.
No extended family to offer help or ask where we were headed. Just me, Owen, and Levi, 3 backpacks, 2 garbage bags of clothes, and a shoebox filled with photos Dad had kept in his desk drawer. Levi kept looking up at me like he was trying to figure out if this was some kind of punishment, like he'd missed the reason why all of this was happening. Owen didn't look at anything at all. He just kept walking, hands shoved into the front pocket of his hoodie, eyes locked on the ground. The apartment I'd found was in a neighborhood no one would brag about. It was below street level, but it was cheap. And most importantly, it was available. The landlord, Miss June, was a thin woman with heavy eyeliner and a voice like crushed gravel. She barely blinked when she saw us. "You're young," she said, handing me the lease on a clipboard. "I know." She looked at the boys. "Family? They're mine," I said, without hesitation. Miss June stared at me for a second too long, then nodded. "You got half the deposit?" I handed over everything I had in cash, $3.90. She didn't count it, just tucked it into her coat pocket and pointed to the stairs. "Bottom right." And the whole unit tilted like it had been built on a sinking sidewalk. But it had 2 small rooms and a bathroom. There was no furniture. He just pulled his hood up and stared at nothing. Levi wandered into the smaller room. "Can I have this one?" I smiled, because that's what you do. "Sure, baby. It's yours." That night, I laid awake on the bare floor, the boys curled in sleeping bags beside me. My back ached. My hands were raw from carrying bags and scrubbing down the bathroom. I had $76 left in my account and no job. But I wasn't afraid yet. Not because I was brave, but because I didn't have time to be afraid. Fear wastes energy, and every ounce of mine was going into keeping us above water. The next morning, I stapled together a cheap resume and walked into every shop along Holloway Street. Diners, nail salons, gas stations. That's when I knew I wasn't holding them up by myself. They were already learning how to hold me, too. The walls sweated in summer and froze in winter. Our basement apartment smelled like boiled pipe water and bleach no matter how many candles I lit. But we made it ours. We taped Levi's drawings on the fridge. Owen strung up old Christmas lights he found in a neighbor's trash. I bought a secondhand rug at a yard sale and called it a living room. It wasn't much, but it was ours. And that mattered. Each day was a math problem I solved with caffeine and duct tape. Rent was $625. My bakery job brought in $180 a week. Cleaning offices added $90 more. Babysitting, on a good weekend, gave me another $60. Groceries.
Busfare.
Shoes when Owen's feet outgrew his soles overnight. I made it work. Or, at least I faked it well enough for 2 boys not to see me fall apart. He did his homework in silence, always early, always perfect. I found out later that he'd started taking peanut butter sandwiches to school to trade for pencils and notebooks. One night, I came home after babysitting and found a single sticky note on the door. "Dinner's ready."
Owen.
Inside, the apartment was dark except for the glow from the stove light. 2 plates of boxed macaroni and canned green beans waited on the table. "I figured out the hot plate," Owen said, sitting cross-legged on the floor with Levi. "We wanted to help." I didn't cry. Not until they'd gone to bed. Then I sat on the floor, next to that makeshift table, and let myself fall apart in silence. Not because of sadness, but because I realized they still had hope. Somehow, even here, they believed in me, and I couldn't let that belief be wasted. Not now. Not ever. It started with a shoebox. I'd hidden it behind the heater in our apartment, filled with scraps, copies of utility bills, the mortgage notice Dad once left on the kitchen counter, a photo of him signing something with a man in a suit. I didn't know what I was looking for exactly, only that something had never sat right. Not since Uncle Roy showed up with that smug lawyer and claimed there was no will. Not since they forced us out before the funeral flowers had wilted. It was Owen who lit the match. He was 16, lanky and sharp-eyed, sitting at the wobbly kitchen table doing a report on estate law for school. I was folding laundry. Levi was humming in the corner, painting another cosmic dragon on a scrap of cardboard. "Hey," Owen said, looking up slowly. "When someone dies without a will, doesn't the estate have to go through probate court?" I shrugged. "That's what they said happened."
Why?
"I've been searching the state probate database. There's nothing under Dad's name. No court records. No filings. It's like his estate never existed." I froze. One of Levi's t-shirts balled in my hands. "Are you sure?" He spun the laptop around. "See for yourself." I stared at the blank screen.
No filings.
No notice. No appointment of guardianship. Nothing. "You remember that lawyer? Mr. Dempsey?" I nodded. The one who never looked me in the eye. The one who had accidentally lost the key to Dad's filing cabinet.
He got disbarred.
2 years after Dad died. Financial misconduct. Levi looked up from his painting. "What's disbarred?" "It means he's not a lawyer anymore," Owen said. Eyes still locked on mine. It was time to stop surviving. It was time to start digging. The lawyer's office was nothing like the ones you see on TV.
No polished floors, no gleaming nameplates.
Wearing a wrinkled blouse and boots scuffed from city sidewalks. But when she shook my hand, her grip was firm.
"Steady."
"I read your email," she said, motioning for me to sit. "And I stayed up all night going through everything you sent." She didn't smile, but she didn't look doubtful either. She looked like someone who had seen too many impossible stories turn out to be true. "I believe you," she said simply. Those 3 words nearly broke me. I exhaled. And I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath for years. Sarah spread the paperwork across her desk. Photocopies, notes I'd scrawled on the backs of receipts, bank transfers I'd managed to request through endless phone calls. And the shoebox. Always the shoebox. "This is one of the most elaborate estate frauds I've ever seen," she said. "If we can find the original will, or someone willing to admit what happened, we can break this wide open." I nodded. "What if the will's gone?" "Then we go after the lawyer. Mr. Dempsey." I've had 6 years to think about this. 2 days later, we drove out to Millersville. The car lot was half empty, the sign faded. We found him behind a desk littered with styrofoam coffee cups and old receipts. He looked older than I remembered, his hair thinner, hands shaking slightly when he lit a cigarette. At first, every bank transaction, his shoulders slumped. He stared at the desk for a long moment before whispering, "They paid me 50 grand. To destroy the will. Forge new ones. Make it look like your father had nothing."
My mouth went dry.
"There was a trust," he continued. "A big one. Set up for you and your brothers. But it had conditions. You had to be 25. The boys had to graduate high school. Otherwise, it stayed locked." "Where is it now?" Sarah asked. "The bank still has it," he said. "As far as they know, the will just hasn't been activated yet. It's still there. All of it." "How much?" "When I destroyed it, it was about 70 million. With interest?" He looked at me, haunted. "It's probably over 100 now." I didn't speak.
Couldn't.
Expensive, well-rested. Ours didn't wear designer anything, but Sarah had a fire in her eyes that made me believe in things again. She stood and opened with a single line. "This is not just a case about money. This is about betrayal, by blood." Then she walked the jury through our lives, photographs of our moldy basement apartment, pay stubs from my 3 jobs. School reports showing Owen's grades, Levi's drawings. She laid out the timeline, the forged documents, the fake debts, the estate that never went to probate. She showed them how the trust fund sat untouched in a bank vault, while we rationed instant noodles and pawned winter coats. Their side tried to twist it. They said I was unstable. But then Sarah called Mr. Dempsey. The courtroom went still. He sat down, cleared his throat, and with shaking hands, admitted everything.
The bribe.
The destroyed will.
The trust.
The real amount, over $100 million, sitting untouched because of a lie. "And who paid you to do this?"
Sarah asked. He didn't look at me.
He pointed. Roy Thomas. My uncle looked away. After that, the defense unraveled. No more smiling. No more confident whispers. Just silence. And then it was my turn. Sarah didn't coach me. She just said, "Tell them the truth." So I did. About the night we left the house. About folding Levi into my coat when the heat went out. About Owen skipping lunch so I could eat. About how every single thing we'd built, every passing grade, every clean shirt, every laugh at dinner, was a miracle. We didn't want charity, I said. We just wanted what was ours. I glanced back at my brothers. And no one's ever taking that from us again. The verdict came down like thunder, sharp, final, impossible to ignore. For the plaintiffs on all counts. I didn't cry.
Not right then.
I just sat there, clutching the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to earth. Behind me, Owen let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a gasp. Levi whispered, "We did it." Over and over like a prayer. The judge ordered the immediate release of the trust. Punitive damages. Full restitution. Legal fees. It was more than we'd hoped for. More than we thought possible. But the real justice came in the faces across the aisle. Uncle Roy slumped forward, color drained from his cheeks. Aunt Marcia stared blankly, like her brain refused to process what had just happened. Their sons, the ones who mocked our poverty, who posted vacation pictures while we stood in food pantry lines, sat frozen, lips pressed tight, futures unraveling by the second. In the days that followed, consequences chased them like dogs. Uncle Roy lost his position at the firm he'd bragged about for years. Word got out. No one wanted to work with a man who stole from orphans. His clients fled. His license was suspended. Eventually, even Marcia left, taking what remained of their savings and moving in with her sister upstate. The house he bought with our father's money was seized. The cars sold. The pride? That evaporated quickest of all. Dempsey faced disbarment and criminal charges. He pleaded out to avoid prison, but his name was forever tied to ours, in headlines, in court records, in shame. But we didn't celebrate. Not like that. We bought a house. A real one. Nothing extravagant, just clean walls, a working heater. Enough bedrooms for us each to have our own space for the first time in years. We painted it ourselves. Ate pizza on the floor the first night. Laughed until our sides hurt. I kept working for a while. Couldn't help it. Routine had become armor. I still clipped coupons. Still flinched at unexpected phone calls. Owen once found me crying over a dented can of beans on sale, and I couldn't explain why. Because some bruises don't show on skin. Because surviving poverty makes you question every good thing. But slowly we adjusted. Levi joined an art program. Owen applied to colleges. We bought real mattresses, real towels, a dining table that didn't wobble. And every Sunday morning, without fail, we made pancakes. Because even with everything we'd gained, some rituals weren't about money. They were about remembering where we came from.
And who we fought to become.
It was a quiet morning when the letter came. Not an email, not a text, a real letter, thick cream envelope, my name handwritten in ink I recognized immediately. It stopped me cold in the kitchen. I held it like it might burn. Levi sat at the table sketching a dragon with flower wings. Owen was in the garage tuning his bike. I stood there with that envelope in my hand, the toast burning behind me, and knew, before I opened it, who it was from. Uncle Roy. I waited until the boys left the house before I tore it open. The letter was 3 pages long. The first page apologized. The second tried to explain. The third asked for something. Forgiveness. He said things like, I was under pressure. It wasn't supposed to go that far. I thought you'd be better off without the burden. He used the word mistake a dozen times. Said he couldn't sleep at night. That Aunt Marcia hadn't spoken to him since the trial. That his sons blamed him for everything, and maybe they were right. He wrote that seeing me in court, hearing what I said, it changed something. He said I'd grown into the kind of woman my father would have been proud of. That I had his spine, his fire. And then at the end, he asked, would you be willing to meet? Just once.
No lawyers. No cameras.
Just family. I folded the letter slowly, set it on the table beside the unpaid water bill and Owen's college pamphlet. I made tea, sat on the porch, let the autumn wind rattle the wind chimes. And I thought about the day he threw us out like trash, about sleeping on floors, about watching Levi's ribs when he got too thin, about Owen selling his old phone to buy me a coat. I thought about how many nights I had to pretend everything was fine just so the boys could sleep without worry. I thought about the weight of that word, family. Then I stood up, walked inside, tore the letter in half. Not out of spite, out of peace. Because sometimes closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from knowing you no longer need anything from the person who broke you. Not answers, not apologies, not even forgiveness. Levi graduated high school on a warm June afternoon, his cap slightly crooked, paint still staining his fingernails. He walked across the stage with that crooked smile of his, the same one he used to give me when he was 5 and wanted a second cookie. When they called his name, Owen and I stood up in unison, clapping louder than anyone else in the auditorium. He turned, found us in the crowd, and gave the smallest nod.
Just like Dad used to.
And for a moment, I saw all 3 of them, my brothers and the man who gave us everything even in death. Later that night, we grilled hot dogs in the backyard of our house. Not the basement apartment. Our house. Fairy lights strung between the trees. Music playing low from the kitchen. Levi showed us his portfolio, pages of dragons and dreamscapes, color and fire. Owen, now halfway through his second year of college, teased him about the paint stains on every hoodie he owned. I watched them laugh. Together. Unbroken. And I realized something I hadn't dared believe for years. We made it. Not because the money saved us, but because we refused to let the worst version of the world decide who we'd become. That night, as stars blinked to life overhead, Levi leaned against my shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up." I looked at both of them, grown now, their faces full of light and history. And I said, never, not once. Because when love is real, fierce and rooted, it doesn't fold in the face of hardship. It builds a life out of ashes and dares the world to try again.